Damn it. Damn it, Nostalgia Critic. Beat me right to the punch. The Hulk punch. No matter what, I am still devoted to doing a review on a movie that constantly reminds me the very bitter truth of growing up and becoming a movie critic. Hello everyone, David here. So I've done analytical reviews on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. However, in the midst of that trilogy, Marvel, or more specifically, other companies that had some kind of tie or contract with Marvel, saw the success of Spider-Man in 2002. Did I just say 2002? Or at the very least, they saw the potential success in a live-action Spider-Man movie with the advancement in technology and special effects, good casting. It looked like all of the pieces were on the table that could create a great superhero film. And people took notice of that. One particular company, Universal Studios, said, you know what? We have the rights to the Hulk. I think it's time to bring the Hulk to the big screen. It's been stuck on the small screen for the longest time, where you had two actors to be devoted to the same character, one playing the alter ego of another. But now, with the advancement in technology, they can do bigger and better and larger than life things to bring this character to life the only way that they should. And it was time for Universal to deliver Ang Lee's Hulk. Or the Hulk. I remember going to the movie theater and they said the Hulk, but the logo only says Hulk. It's the fucking Hulk. Now, there is somewhat of a personal attachment to this movie from my side of things, because I'm sorry, I just had to admit it right here. I loved this movie. I loved this movie back when it came out in 2003. And I saw the trailers. I saw that teaser trailer that I think was just so eloquently put together. That was just one of the best teaser trailers I have seen, not only in a long time when I was a kid, but I think to this day I still hold that teaser trailer in high regard, because it does just that, a teaser. These days, teaser trailers are categorized as teaser trailers, but they give everything away. This one, short, simple, sweet, and very teasingly to the point, having Eric Bana as Bruce Banner looking at himself in the mirror, and all of a sudden one of his eyes turns green. The wall just explodes with everything, including the literal kitchen sink, and then we just have a title card. And I'm like, that's perfect. You didn't even show the creature. You don't even have to show that much. You don't even have to show the full-on transformation. You just see an eye go green, and boom, we already know what it is. So when we see the title card say Hulk, especially back in 2002, when we were about to see Spider-Man, we see that teaser trailer saying, hey, we got this in the works. Shit was going down, man. And then I saw the movie, and at the time I was only 12 years old, and to be honest, I was hankering for like the next big Spider-Man because of how much I loved Spider-Man at the time, that I welcomed the Hulk in open arms, and I walked out of the movie saying it was probably one of the greatest things ever. I kind of became obsessively over it, so obsessive that I actually went ahead and got the Hulk video game for the Nintendo GameCube. It's one of those basic movie tie-in video games, but because I was just so enamored with the entire thing, I was just so disappointed that this actually takes place years after the initial film and didn't follow the chronicles of the father-son relationship between Bruce and David. So I still had fun with it. However, it's a casual brawler, and every so often I get tempted. Should I review this now? Later on, when it came time, I of course got the DVD, which back then was such a big deal that it came in the 2-disc special edition, even though it's just standard DVD. And on top of that, it was a privilege. It was a privilege if you managed to get the widescreen edition. Not the bogus-ass full screen. Widescreen. And because it's the DVD, doesn't have enough space on the discs, boom! Swagger. Swagger on 2 discs. You see that shit? And I remember counting down the days to getting this, because I was like, I want the movie, I want to rewatch the movie over and over and over, and I want to 14 years later. So I rewatched the film. I can't remember what time this is now that I've seen the movie, to prepare for this review. And like I said in the intro, it reminds me of how much I wish I could retain my innocence from childhood, where I thought that every movie was the best movie ever. And some movies still hold up. Hulk from Ang Lee, on the other hand, let's just say that the film turns out to be almost as troubled as our main protagonist. So one of the alluring factors about the Hulk is not so much that we got Eric Bana to play the titular character, or we got Jennifer Connelly to play Betsy, or the remainder of the cast from Nick Nolte to Sam Elliott. Everybody was talking about How is Ang Lee, who just came off of the success of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, not only being a very excellent foreign film, but just being an excellent film, period, garnering an awful lot of Academy Award nominations, coming off of the success of that, to grant this filmmaker the power and the money and the talent and the leeway to be able to make a summer blockbuster like let alone a superhero movie like The Hulk, everybody was very enticed. Of course, at the time I didn't recognize who the hell Ang Lee was. I was more taken not only with the visual effects, but amongst other things that I do want to break down in this review. But one of the things that I have recognized and learned to really accept over time, over the 14 years since I've seen the film for the very first time in the movie theater as a naive little kid, I recognize that maybe getting some kind of a director that's much more nuanced with artful projects doesn't necessarily always equate to a successful blockbuster film, because sometimes they are just so creative and driven with the artistic beast within themselves that they don't realize that, yeah, you're still making a superhero movie. And honest to God, there's no other way that I can summarize the biggest problem with this movie, and that is the confusion with Ang Lee's direction. Because I remember watching the DVD features that I just showed you, and back when I was a kid, I didn't really think that much of it, but for some reason, there was a little segment in one of the commentaries or one of the documentaries that they shot behind the scenes, whatever, I can't remember if it was a producer, saying that they were praising Ang Lee for trying to go above and beyond a mindless superhero blockbuster film and trying to bring something much more emotional and deeper to the genre, where he was trying to make something a little bit more fleshed out. And that's why he wanted to take the approach of the father-son angle from the script and really flourish it to make it seem like it's something bigger than what it's supposed to be. And that's never been an initial problem. You could still do that with the superhero movie, and Marvel currently, and I guess you could say DC with Wonder Woman, really showcase how possible it is to bring a summer blockbuster movie to the theaters, while at the same time being able to interweave it with great characters, great story beats within them, and also great development for those characters where you feel like you can empathize, you feel like you can be in their shoes and find some kind of relatability there. And that's why those movies succeed. With The Hulk, Ang Lee took that approach, which is very commendable and very appreciative that, hey, he was thinking like no other director would. The problem with Ang Lee, however, is that he took that approach and cranked it to motherfucking 11, because this movie is just way too serious and way too dramatic for what it really is. You got a big giant green monster going around destroying things, and with even some elements in there that feel like they should feel right at home with a comic book superhero movie, but then get bogged down because the movie just gets super metaphysical and artsy and psychological, even with its opening moments within the first act, where we don't even start off with the Gamma accident or anything like that. We get more of David Banner, Nick Nolte's character, or at least this character now in his earlier years when he's a middle-aged man, and how exactly he is responsible for something that happened with Bruce Banner. And then after that, we do proceed through the years and we catch up with Eric Bana, but even until that point, we're still dealing with the father-son thing, even if the father is completely out of the picture. And then the next problem that, again, I did not recognize when I was a kid, but now it really does bug me the more I think about it. These actors, you got a very talented cast within this movie. Eric Bana, coming off the success of Black Hawk Down. Jennifer Connelly, coming off the success of Beautiful Mind. Josh Lucas, Nick Nolte, Sam Elliott. So many great actors. And Ang Lee told them to take their seriousness and, just like the film, crank it at 11, because they're so fucking serious that they're just completely devoid of any other emotion other than anger and fear and seriousness. And because of that, we don't relate to them, because no human being acts this way. Well, I might be exaggerating. There might be like one or two people out there that have been fucked for life and they act that way. But these actors that are brimming with talent are turned into pieces of wood. The script even tries to give them some witty banter, and yet, because of how monotone they are, it just doesn't work.
Tell me about your dream.
Emote, you left testicle, emote. And again, when I was a kid, I was very naive to this. I just completely turned away from it. Now, it's slightly painful to watch some of these scenes where you want these characters to have some kind of charisma, especially between Betty and Bruce here, played by these two actors, and there's no charisma. There's no kind of attachment between the two. And even though they're trying to make it seem like, oh, there might be on and off again with their relationship, I frankly don't care, because the two of them are just weird with each other. You got Jennifer Connelly, very mopey and sad, and then you got Eric Bana having his moments where either he's completely devoid of emotion or he's just flat out creepy. Or we can always go with the constipated look joke. I mean, so many other reviewers have done it at this point, but shit, let's just do it. Thank you for calling Taco Bell. How can I help you? Sir? Sir, did you wish to file a complaint? Ooh, that sounds real bad. You sure that it was from here or from Del Taco? Because, you know, Del Taco, you know, they got their... Get out! Sir, I would like to state for the record that any phone conversation we have is being recorded. We just heard you take a massive dump. I like it. I'm gonna hang up now, okay? And Josh Lucas playing Glenn Talbot, who's a character from the comics as well, it's almost like he didn't have enough time to grow out the mustache that he would eventually twirl many scenes throughout this movie. He's just a traditional douchebag who barely has a dimension to his name. Adrian Pasdar, I don't know, but the guy who plays Talbot in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right now is way better, because even though he is kind of douchey, he's also very charismatic. So many lines he has on that show that crack me the hell up. But on top of that, he's also somewhat conflicted, because he has his moments where he says that he has to follow these orders, and at the same time, something deep inside is telling him that maybe Coulson might be right, and he's trying to fight it, and that makes for an interesting character. Glenn Talbot here, he's just some dude that is just solely there to cause Bruce to go angry, and it's just a douchebag. The only two actors that I'm willing to give some credit, and even then I still have a little criticism to make, is Sam Elliott and Nick Nolte, the two senior actors here who have had enough experience in their time to maybe do something with their character that is compelling. Sam Elliott as General Thunderbolt Ross, I thought that he honed the character very well. He got angry when he needed to be angry, but he felt like a believable officer, even though he did have his over-the-top moments from time to time. He still managed to bring a level of believability to his character, whether it be as either a general in the army trying to take down the Hulk, or even as Betty's father. He felt natural to that role. And then Nick Nolte, he has his moments where he's very excellent. He's very, very good, and he knows that he's the right person that he's playing. You know what I mean? Like as a father figure or whatever. But both of these characters and the respectful actors, they almost feel like they're in the wrong movie. Most especially Nick Nolte. I can easily take his character and put him in some other drama. And this kind of segues into what could be the other biggest problem with this movie is, of course, due in part to Ang Lee, is that this feels more like he made a drama with superhero elements. Whereas some of the more traditional Marvel movies that we're getting nowadays from Marvel, or even with Wonder Woman, which is so far the lightning in the bottle that DC has caught, they are making comic book superhero movies with drama and comedy elements fused into them, creating a mixture that actually feels tonally right. Because if the majority of your movie is a comic book, then you need to go with the tone of a comic book superhero movie, where you have that, I don't want to say self-aware, like don't go to the extent of Deadpool self-aware, but just know what type of material you're dealing with. And Ang Lee, I feel like he didn't know the full extent of the material that he was dealing with. It's almost like he forgot. It's almost like the next project that he wanted to do was a drama, and he had to settle with the Hulk, and it felt like he had a good intention for what he was trying to do. Like, I respect that, I do. It just didn't execute well. And now, looking back at the movie, rewatching it 14 years later in present day, I'm constantly reminded of how this movie's really clashing with itself. It's almost like it's fighting with itself. Just like the inner turmoil that the Hulk is facing, the movie's also kind of fighting with itself. Almost as if maybe this was a byproduct of the filmmaking process. Like, it initially wanted to be another Spider-Man, and over time, Ang Lee brought on like a couple of other writers on board, because one thing that I noticed recently while I was doing research to prepare for this review, I downloaded that teaser trailer you just saw, and at the end it shows that one screenwriter is credited as the sole writer for writing the script for the movie. But if you go back and watch the opening credits of The Hulk, you'll notice that 2 more names were added to that screenwriting credit. So I wonder if Ang Lee had anything to do with bringing these 2 guys on board. I don't know. But somewhere along the lines, it became what it's now known today, which is something that kind of betrays their marketing material up until that point. The marketing material had like rock songs. It was advertising the movie to be like the next big blockbuster with a bunch of action shots and frequent frenetic cutting and all this other stuff. And then the movie just doesn't pan out to be like that. And I know that I'm kind of repeating myself here, but some crucial examples to showcase how much of the movie is fighting with itself is the visual effects, where, like I said, the movie's constantly being serious. It's trying to evoke some kind of dramatic emotion that's very, very serious. And we cut to shots of the Hulk where, admittingly, he has his scenes where he looks a little rubbery, a little Shrekish, I guess.
I feel something touch me.
The pacing is really, really off because it takes 40 fucking minutes to see the Hulk in this movie. I understand you want to build up, but there's moments where it's like, am I still watching a Hulk movie? Because again, it feels like I'm watching a drama, and then all of a sudden, Bruce has this gamma accident. From there, he turns into the Hulk, and after that, he goes a good while without turning into the Hulk, where out of nowhere, it comes in back, reminding us that it's the Hulk. And then there's another very significant gap where we got Bruce in the space, trying to confront his past, dealing with the death of his mother and his upbringing of his father coming back into his life after all these years. And again, just so many details that I'm like, you're sandwiching them up in a very unfavorable way. And then suddenly the Hulk is back, and it's non-stop action from that point, and that's actually one of the more enjoyable segments of the movie. But then it just gets away from us, right? And by that point, it's too little too late, to where the movie's now running at nearly 2.5 hours, and it just feels like I didn't get the proper balance of Hulk versus Bruce, along with all this father-son drama that is going on. And then there's the magical editing of the Hulk, which again had its good intentions, but ended up being more of a distraction than anything else. I will admit the editing does have a few of its guilty pleasure moments where there's certain things and tricks that they do with the panels and stuff like that, because their intention was to make it seem like a comic book. Ang Lee made it clear that he wanted the movie to resemble a comic book, which is very contradictory considering how dramatic he was trying to make the goddamn thing. But his initial direction with the editing that he was trying to get through with his editor was to have these multiple panels to kind of interswitch and whatnot to evoke this feeling of watching a comic book play in interactive form. That's cool and all, but just like with the visual effects, you can't get too flashy with them. And there are moments in the movie where they get a little flashy, especially when they get to the desert. When they get to the desert and they try to get Bruce inside of this base after getting sedated, it's just non-stop. It's like for 5 minutes, it's just panel switching and all this stuff, and it's very distracting and nauseating, where it becomes like one of those visual effects where it's more about the visual effect and not so much how it's servicing the story. And that's where you need to take notes for future filmmakers such as myself. I'm trying to teach myself here. You need to make sure that any kind of gimmick or any little detail that is extra and optional and not necessary for your movie needs to service the story, needs to service the characters. That's why Marvel, again, is killing it right now with some of these visual effects like Baby Groot or Rocket. Is because they're characters and they have some kind of effect on the story. This editing, when it's used sparingly, especially for the first act or so of the movie, it's quite catching and enthralling and interesting. It's a visual flair that's different and unique and sets it apart from whatever else was out at the time, like Spider-Man or Blade or whatever. But after some time, it starts to get a little overwhelming, to where I felt like they needed to turn that shit off immediately. I'll give this to Ang Lee. You know those GIFs that you sometimes see on Twitter, on Facebook, or God forbid Tumblr, that show the little white lines on the screen to cause an illusion of 3D? Well, Ang Lee pioneered that in 2003. Take a look at this. I still flinch. What's wrong with me? I still flinch at that. And speaking of Ang Lee being contradictory, recently watching the movie, I noticed there's an awful lot of dick jokes in this movie. You're trying to be super serious with their father-son drama, and ever so often there's a dick joke. Look at this. I don't know, I guess you could say at this point they should call him Wang Li. Oh, shut up, like you could do any better. It sounds like I have made a possible mistake breaking my heart of this grand illusion that I had over this movie 14 years ago, where I painted it in like the pinkest light ever. But not all it's lost, because rewatching the movie, I do realize that there's some moments that still hold up, because they're fun. The dogfight between, well, it's not a dogfight like Arrow dogfight, but it's Hulk versus these 3 mutant dogs. Sure, it looks a little iffy when it comes to the visual effects, but the actual choreography and the fight itself, something about it that I still find entertaining that I could rewatch. The entire segment of Hulk cruising through San Francisco or through the desert, even though it has its moments where it's like Ang Lee's trying really hard to get dramatic again, still there's some fun to be had with him fighting the helicopters and the jets and whatnot. There's some interesting stuff there. And there's also the concept, even though I didn't think it was pulled off so eloquently as they intended. Nick Nolte's character, the father, becoming the absorbing man by the end of the movie, I thought that was a very interesting take on the whole ordeal. But the way it ends with this thing? Giant gamma herpes. I have nothing. Even though I said that Hulk has his moments where he looks kind of rough, there's other moments where he looks pretty good. It's going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but I think that the moment where the Hulk looks the best visually is probably when he's in the dark. So like I said, the dogfight, or during his first emergence in the lab where he's just wrecking everything, he looks menacing. He looks like an actual imposing hulking figure that looks scary in the dark. Like he looks like something that's going to come after you and tear you to shreds, and that's rather intimidating but effective. And Danny Elfman's score, coming off of a high of doing Spider-Man, he's back to doing another superhero movie here, and he does a very effective score that's very ear-warming. I cannot get out of my head, especially now after rewatching the movie. And I gotta give props to that ending. I actually appreciated a rather non-conventional ending for a superhero movie. Usually the guy gets the girl, it all works out well for them, or at least there's some kind of semblance of hope for our main protagonist. Here, it's not necessarily dire per se, but characters aren't necessarily united. Betty and Ross still have some problems. They don't exactly have the best, most perfect relationship. David Banner's, I guess you could say, dead? Blew up? Anyways. And Bruce is actually in South America, and he's got a beard. So a beard means transformation. It means like the most dramatic shit possible, because Ang Lee meant to be dramatic. But one little detail, it's very subtle, very nuanced, but I honestly kind of appreciate it, is that he says his iconic line, but he says it in Spanish. So racists might not like that. But what's interesting to note is that in this shot, when he says that you're not going to like me when I'm angry in Spanish, he kind of smiles a little bit. It's a little hard to make out through that beard, but it looks like he's smiling. So I think that's actually rather interesting, because this entire time he was trying to fight the beast, trying to overcome it, trying to extract it and kill it, like he proposed earlier to David himself. It's interesting that now, based on that little tick, that little smile, it's almost like he's accepting the beast, the monster, and he now knows that this is part of him and there's no getting it out of him. He's gonna have to live with it and try to find some kind of way to be one with the beast and be able to control it and pull it out by will. And I think that's kind of cool, not only because of the way that it wraps up for the movie and wraps up the whole story arc, but in a way, you can also see this as a way to kind of connect itself with the Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton. I mean, think about it. He starts off in South America. I believe he's in Brazil. This is also a little trait carried over to the Avengers with Mark Ruffalo, where he's like, I'm always angry. He's able to just transform like that, with minus this little incident in the helicarrier. So I think that's kind of emblematic for how this legacy all kind of kicked off with the Hulk, where, yes, it had some identity issues where it was trying to be deeper than it really had to be, and because of that, it really ended up being its own undoing. But there's things still to appreciate from the movie, whether it be fun moments where it's almost like Ang Lee remembered to have a little bit of fun with these characters to give them some kind of humor or to give them some kind of levity, but also because there's some appreciated things where they tried to do something new and different, whether it be with the dramatic sense of the father-son relationship between David and Bruce, or with the editing, or with the style. As critics and as fellow peers or fellow filmmakers adjacent, it's always appreciative to see somebody trying to think outside of the box instead of trying to be conventional and routine, because boring is always probably the worst thing that you can do as a filmmaker, as an artist, or whatever. Boring is always the worst thing that you can do. Even if you're bad, people will always be like, well, at least you tried something different. At least you were trying to do something new, something unique. And that's what goes, I will admit, heavily underappreciated for Ang Lee's Hulk. It was trying to do something different and new. The execution didn't pan out, but you gotta at least give appreciation and credit where credit is due. And I might end up eating my words here, but I think there's also some appreciation in the existence of the movie itself, because then I don't think the Hulk would have been taken all that much more seriously within the movies. Therefore, we wouldn't have had the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, and then we wouldn't have had the inclusion of the character in the Marvel Universe. But that's just me. So if you guys have any kind of fond memories or recollections of Ang Lee's 2003 interpretation of the Hulk, please let me know. What do you guys remember from the movie? Do you think that it doesn't hold up as well as it normally did, or do you still hold it to high regard and saying that yes, it's definitely an underrated gem of a movie that's part of the Marvel family? Let me know all of your guys' insights and remarks in the comment section below. Make sure you support the video by hitting the like and share button, and do not forget to subscribe to also support the channel, and keep in tune with upcoming videos, some of which could be some analytical looks on some classic movies such as this: X-Men, the original Daredevil, and why stop at movies? You guys just saw that I own the original Hulk game on GameCube. I also have, actually I have it right here, Spider-Man. You guys remember this motherfucker? Yes. I've been tossing it back and forth like a ping pong whether or not to review this. I've been doing the classic reviews of the Spider-Man Sam Raimi movies. How about we go back to the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man video games, culminating in Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 3 did not exist. And as always, I thank you guys for watching and sticking with this until the very, very, very end. I appreciate it a lot. Until next time, guys, take care. Hulk smash! And here is where we mark to the beginning-ish of the changes to the theatrical film that creates the editor's cut. Now, certain things are still there. Yes, dancing emo Peter is still in the film.